Well, Mr. Jagmeet Singh has decided to finally pull the plug and do the right thing. I guess better late than never. I think it's too late for him regardless. I think he has pretty much destroyed his political career. Please God, let's hope that's the case. But the reality is, it looks like we may be going to the polls sooner than later. I'm not overly hopeful because Justin Trudeau is so low in the polls that there is no redeeming himself. And I think he's just too narcissistic to actually remove himself from that equation. And so I think, it may be another year of Justin Trudeau before we see a change in government. And then, of course, we've also got the whole issue of MPs who are going to be, oh, let's stave this election until they can collect their pensions, Jagmeet Singh being one of them. So, I was hopeful that we would see something sooner, but doesn't look like that's going to happen. Let's keep our fingers crossed, maybe. But I want to talk to people because they've been asking me whether or not I still support the People's Party of Canada and Maxime Bernier. And I was looking the other day about leadership and reading like the difference between leadership and management. And it's so funny because even here provincially, we have so many people politicians, who have quoted Ralph Klein, find a parade and get in front of it. Well, I have a question. Is that leadership? Because that's what I'm seeing Pierre Poilievre do. That's what I'm seeing Danielle Smith do. Only when an issue becomes so popular and it becomes safe to do so, especially on a controversial issue, do they then get in front of that parade. So is that leadership? No, I don't think so. You may be trying to manage the situation there, but that's following. That is not leading. If anything, it's, almost unethical because you're hijacking, somebody else's hard work. The leader who actually, came out, spoke to the issue, started the parade, and now really all you're doing is joining it. So, when people talk to me about leadership is about doing the right thing when it's not popular to do so. It's about doing the hard things because it's the right thing to do, not necessarily because the polls agree with you, but because, you know it to be true. And so, when I look back at leadership in this province, the only person who federally, I'll just talk about federally at the moment, who I see as having demonstrated any true leadership is Maxime Bernier. And the reason I say that was because when it was unpopular to do so, he stood by his principles, he still stood by his policies, he stood with Canadians, and he stood his ground. He didn't change his position because it was unpopular. And when you look at his policies going as far back as 2018, when the PPC, the People's Party of Canada, was formed, those policies themselves have not been changed. We've added some policies to that, and of course they have maybe amended, tweaked, just language or certain circumstances that have changed to make them more correct, but the underlying policies have all remained the same. That's leadership. When I look at immigration today and the issues that are being raised with so many Canadians, here's the thing. In 2018, Maxime Bernier, the People's Party of Canada, myself included, were raising the alarm. We were waving those red flags and trying to bring attention to the issue of immigration and mass immigration. There was economic consequences, there was cultural consequences, and we brought that to the forefront, and people just weren't ready to hear it. They didn't want to hear it, and including government officials. The official opposition should have been looking at the economic consequences, the cultural impacts of mass immigration, and should have been challenging that, but they didn't. And the question I have to ask is why not? Because it wasn't popular, that's why not. Politicians get behind a parade and then they wiggle their way to the front of it, but they certainly don't start a parade. And so when we look at leadership in this country, it's severely lacking because the country is run on polls. It's not run on principle. And that's a sad reality. So, in this next upcoming federal election, people have asked me, how are you going to vote? Well, my vote's never changed. Why? Because my principles have never changed, and the support of the policies have never changed. And those policies are the People's Party of Canada and Maxime Bernier's principles. I was able to rally strongly behind Maxime and his ideas, and I'm still a big advocate, and he still has my support on that. And I just only wish more people had the courage and less fear, a lot more faith, that things would actually work out if people actually started asking for what they want instead of listening to politicians' false promises, and then they really don't follow through. And it's really funny, if you want some really good examples, Milton Friedman, for a lot of people, he's kind of obsolete today. You don't really hear the name that come up much, even for people who've studied economics. Oh yeah, I kind of heard of him. Well, he had some really great lectures on realistically why and what motivates politicians, and it's power, and it's about remaining in power and getting reelected. And they will say whatever they think they need to say, or whatever they think you want them to say to get elected, but then they follow through with very dismal performance. He actually has a great book, I think, called Bright Promises, Dismal Performance. There's so many things that you could do to look up that explain just why politicians do the things they do. There's another great book called The Dictator's Handbook, and it talks about the need for a leader to have loyalty, because of course you can't lead alone. And loyalty, of course, is often bought and paid for, right? It's what special privilege can you offer me? And that means special interest groups, lobbyists, activists, the squeaky wheel, that gets the grease. And, that's politics today. It's not done on principle anymore. It's not done on policy. And the problem with politics are politicians. I think, honestly, we need to get back to getting everyday people involved in politics. We need to get back to term limits. Right? No more career politicians. Politics should never have been a career. We need smaller government and smaller spending. And the reason we need smaller government is because it's not only the politicians. There's some really good people that get involved in politics. They get elected only to find that they're up against this huge, massive bureaucracy, this administration, which serves its own self-interest and has a life of itself, often called the deep state. That is a problem. So the only way to address that problem or to deal with it is to shrink the size of government, is to get rid of them altogether. So we need to start taking a hard look at what the role of government should actually be, and restraining its spending to what revenues it actually collects. Honestly, stop this deficit spending and borrowing and printing of money, which is creating inflation at an uncontrollable rate and creating an affordability crisis. We have a productivity crisis here in Canada because we have bureaucracy that is, 18 layers deep, that, business is not even attractive for business to start here. As somebody who's owned small businesses my whole life and has been an entrepreneur, I sit back right now and I go, I don't even know why would I start a business in Canada? Why? The taxes here are atrocious. You work for somebody else, for more than half the year here. They take everything that you make and they generously give you back, maybe 40% of it. And so the reality is, a lot has to change. And unfortunately, it starts with leadership. And that means for the people who know better, you have to speak up. It's time to speak up. The time to speak up passed actually a long time ago. We should have been doing this a lot sooner, but here we are today. The time to speak up is not next week. The time to speak up is now. So if you know somebody, if you can rally behind somebody, get support behind an organization, a group, do what you can. Go talk to your friends, go talk to your neighbors, get involved, volunteer, donate, whatever it is that you're able to do. Now is the time to do it, because I'll tell you, we're losing ground here fast and time keeps ticking. It stays still for no one. So that's my little rant for tonight on leadership, and I hope you guys have a great night. Please, if you like this message, if you like this channel, please subscribe, hit the notification button so you don't miss any in the future, and hit the like button. Leave me your comment. What do you guys think? What should leadership look like? What are your thoughts about, Pierre Poilievre and Maxime Bernier? Share your comments, respectfully. That's all I ask, is respectfully. I'm okay with the fact that we're a very diverse country with very diverse ideas, and I actually appreciate that. But we have to be able to have the conversation in a respectful manner. Note that, everybody's opinion is just that. It's your opinion. And we need to be able to have the dialogue and the conversation. So I'm not a big fan of censorship. And I'm also a big fan of respectful dialogue. So if you can keep it respectful, please share all your comments. If you have a question for me, put it in the comment section too, and hopefully we'll get back to you sooner than later. Have a good night, everyone.